All right. Hey, listen, we're talking about the last two kinds of sentences. We're talking about complex and compound complex. We already talked about simple, and we already talked about compound. Simple, what do we talk about? Simple and compound. So these are the last two, complex and compound complex. All right, so compound, listen, compound, complex. I'm going crazy. Complex, it looks like this. An independent clause. It's just another way of saying a simple sentence, a complete thought, subject, verb, okay? So you have to have a complete thought or an independent clause plus a dependent clause. A dependent clause is simply an adjective clause, an adverb clause, or a noun clause. And they're dependent, which means they depend on the independent clause. You cannot put these by themselves, okay? And they always have a signal word on the front. That's how you know it's a dependent clause. So, when you have an ICDC, here's the main rule. In general, there's no comma between the two. When the independent clause comes first, do not put a comma. If the independent clause is first and then the DC, no comma. Right? If it is a DC, the dependent clause, and then the IC, then you put comma. Good. All right. And here's an example. We're using an adjective clause in this one. Ahmed, who is handsome, loves looking at himself in the mirror. Now this is an example of an adjective clause coming in the middle. The rule for an adjective clause, it always follows the noun it modifies. So, who is handsome? Who's handsome?
Ahmed.
Ahmed is handsome. So, here's your adjective dependent clause. I can't just say, who is handsome? It doesn't mean anything. Okay? So it has to be with an independent clause. In this particular arrangement, the independent clause is Ahmed loves looking at himself in the mirror. Does that make sense? Yeah. And listen, we're not going to get into all the rules. Sorry, you got to pay ELS to take the class. All right. Compound complex. Now listen, all it is a configuration using the second kind, compound, and this one, complex. And you put them together. It is the most difficult kind of sentence to create properly. Okay, all you need, compound. You got to have an IC, and then you got to connect it to another IC. You have three options. Remember from the last video? You can use a comma coordinating conjunction, you can use a semicolon, or you can use a semicolon logical connector comma. But you must have an independent clause connected to another independent clause. That makes it compound too. Now to make it complex, somewhere, here's a nice way to look at it. So you have the IC connected to another IC, and you have the dependent clause. Again, what are dependent clauses? There's three of them. What are they? Adjective clause? Adverb clause?
No.
Or noun clause. So you pop one of those babies where it goes. It could be at the beginning. It could be over here. It could be right here. Or it could be right here. You can put one in all four slots, or you could just use one. There has to be at least one in the mix to make it a compound complex sentence. Okay, that's it. Shut it down.